Good afternoon to all. Welcome to the MindCraft and IBM webinar. Our topic for today is Introduction to IBM Cloud Private. We thank you for making the time to attend the session. You can post your questions in the chat box throughout the presentation. Our presenters for today are Sandesh Chavan, Head Delivery and Product Engineering at MindCraft, and Ritesh Shroff, Senior Specialist IBM Hybrid Cloud at IBM India. Once again, we would like to thank you for making the time to attend the session. Over to you, Sandesh.
Thanks, Rahul. Hello, everyone. Great to talk to you today. So today on today's webinar, we'll speak about how we can bring about cloud efficiency to your data center through IBM Cloud Private. We'll also speak about business problems around IBM Private Cloud and what kind of issues it reports to solve. And we'll also talk about a few use cases around the product. So let me quickly dig into the presentation. So we'll start off by having a quick look at ICP product. We'll talk about its key components and how it differentiates from the legacy virtualization techniques. We'll also look at how ICP can be leveraged in your infrastructure and follow that up with a presentation which Ritesh would show us, where we'll look at in detail about about the product, right? So whenever we talk about cloud, the typical aspects that come in for for any cloud solution, the first thing that comes in is elasticity. So ICP offers elasticity for enterprise development. It allows developers to take advantage of of the newer techniques and architecture around the cloud. It delivers a cloud-ready IBM middleware along with it, so you can actually run your softwares on ICP using the traditional IBM middleware softwares that you're used to using in your enterprise. It has ready operations controls provided for monitoring production environments, so it's easy to leverage onto identity, access management, logging, and other components that are typically being used in your enterprise. And it also has built-in supports for continuous delivery, right? So you can actually leverage all key components that are offered by any cloud environment within your infrastructure. So if we get into details, right, ICP as a product, rides on top of open standards. So you have your containers based on Docker-related technologies and Kubernetes, which allows you to orchestrate these components. So so essentially, it's based on an entire open source stack, which allows you to freely work around with not just ICP but also multiple cloud environments if you are using them in your enterprise, right? So it allows, and everything is behind your firewall, so it allows you to develop, deploy, and manage on-premise cloud applications. So a typical ICP components include a master node. Master node is the management component, which is the core of the Kubernetes platform. It also comes with a worker node where all the workloads execute, and a proxy node, which is an interface for incoming traffic into the cluster. The fourth component of it is the dashboard. So the dashboard is used for management console and for any kind of the user interface to interact with your ICP cloud, right? So in your data center, you have you have these four components which are running, and these allow you to scale your applications using the worker nodes through the master nodes. So let's quickly touch upon how this differentiates from the legacy virtualization techniques, right? So typically, when you talk about legacy virtualization techniques like VM, right, it typically writes off. There is a host system where you have your operating systems, and you have a VM which contains the OS and the application libraries that are bundled as part of the VM, right? So the core difference between a legacy system and something like a container-based application is the OS dependency is completely ruled out when you talk about Docker, and the footprints is much smaller compared to a traditional VM-based footprint. So these are much smaller footprint containers which can be automatically rolled out, and it would work right off your development machines onto any target container platforms that you deploy to. So that's really the key differentiator between any kind of a VM-based traditional legacy implementation versus a container-based implementation. So let's talk about what kind of business problems are we trying to solve when we talk about ICP, right? So typically, if you look at any enterprise environment, right, you would have three kind of applications. You would have applications which are ready for the cloud. Say you might have something which is like Angular or a Node.js based application built for a mobile platform, as an example. You might have something which can be made ready for the cloud. Say a legacy application which is built on, say, a J2E based platform, which you can then port and split into services and maybe take it onto the cloud. And the third is something which is absolutely not ready for a cloud, right? So this is a typical scenario in most enterprise environments today, right? And whenever there is a talk of cloud, there are normally concerns around things like security and control. How will you have controls when you're talking about multiple providers running the IT environment? There's a question on connectivity and performance, because there is a lot of data being exchanged between applications. So how your performance will be when the applications are moved to the cloud vis-a-vis running it in your own data center. There are challenges in ability to integrate, right? Because when you're working in your own infrastructure, your applications are talking to all your applications are within one network, right? So it's much easier to integrate systems in that kind of a scenario. But as soon as you think cloud, the entire architecture, the security, everything needs to be looked at when you talk about integration. Another aspect is governance and security, right? You need assurance around your data that is being saved in your data repository, which goes onto the cloud. And there is a question on technology, right? So if you are talking technology, you don't want to get onto a platform that will lock you down into a specific technology pattern or a profile, right? So you're looking at something open which will allow you to grow in the future and allow you to leverage on newer technologies, right? So DevOps might be a new area that you're looking at. So the technology has to be something that supports it, right? So whenever we look at any kind of movement to the cloud, these are the typical problems that most people think of, right? So so ICP does look to address a lot of these issues that are looked at, and it also allows you to have a clearly defined roadmap wherein your applications can be moved, whether they are cloud ready or they are at a stage where they can be made cloud ready. So it has got a lot of tools which allow you to identify applications and identify the gaps to make it cloud ready. So that's really one of the interesting areas that Ritesh would be touching upon during the demo. Right. So a few use cases that could be looked at when you think about initiating your journey onto the ICP platform, right? So one can be you have your applications which have peak loads at different point of times in the application journey throughout the year, right? So at this kind of applications, ICP can clearly help you scale up, scale down on your applications as the loads increase or decrease throughout the year, right? Another area is development of containerized applications. So, as we look at developing on the newer technologies, containerized applications play a very critical role in terms of cloud native apps, right? So, I think if you're looking at new applications to build which are really cloud native, it really offers you a lot of tools that you can leverage on. And the third aspect is the ease of use, right? So if you're looking at ICP, a lot of tool sets that we use are pretty intuitive. There's not a lot of scripting. It's sort of click and point. So from a start perspective, it's easy to get onto the technology, right? And that's what we really want to showcase today. The ease of use in which you can get started with ICP, and the kind of advantages it offers when you really talk about a cloud platform running within your infrastructure. So without any further delay, I would hand it over to Ritesh. So we'll start into the demo and we'll have a look at the product, which I'm sure would be of interest to you. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Sandesh.
Uh, Thank you, audience, for joining in this webinar. So, my name is Ritesh Shroff. I'm part of the IBM team handling this. Rather than talking, I mean, Sandesh has already given a brief on this particular solution, which is the IBM Cloud Private solution. Uh, I thought that this is a good enough platform for me and for us as a team to demonstrate the product as such and seeing is believing. So I would straight away delve into the demo, right? And uh, the kind of use cases that I will cover today are first and foremost, I'll obviously walk you through the dashboard and something called as an ICP catalog, wherein you can deploy the different kind of applications, how you go about deploying that. I'll also talk about the different kinds of applications that can be deployed. For instance, I will actually walk you through a deployment of a sample, .NET application. I've already deployed a couple of applications running on WebSphere Liberty, and you know, uh, and a cloud native application also is deployed. Something also, and like Sandesh was mentioning, we have a lot of enterprise level applications, the middleware applications of, the IBM stack, for instance, IIB, MQ, API Connect, all of them actually are really readily deployed. Deployable now on ICP, and I have another use case around that as well. I will obviously showcase the auto scaling and auto healing, which is essentially something that a containerized based solution will provide, and I'll showcase that as well. And finally, I'll also harp upon something which is very very critical from your business standpoint, particularly from our Indian market perspective, wherein we are looking to modernize our applications to make them cloud ready. So how do we go about in that transformation, in that journey from an on-premise solution to something that is cloud ready? How do we go about embarking on that journey? We will touch upon that, which is something called as transformation advisor. I'll harp on that. So this is something that I intend to sort of cover in this particular demo. So without any further ado, the team, hoping that everyone is actually able to view the dashboard. So typically when we deploy our IBM Cloud Private solution, right, this is the first thing that appears. This is the dashboard that appears on the screen. What you see is, there are on the left hand side the number of nodes. So Sandesh was talking about the architecture in brief, right? The master node, the worker node, the proxy node. There's something called as a boot node as well, but I wouldn't really get into the architecture as of today. But what you see essentially is, but what I would want to tell you is that majority of the solution that is to be, the applications will run on the worker nodes. And what you see over here is in the list, nodes 7 is, the number of nodes that includes master and worker that I have deployed in my environment. Now, and all of them are active, 100% active. What I see is 0% available, which means that totally as of today, I have, I've deployed multiple applications which are actually making use of 253 GB of data. 0% available meaning that none of them have actually gone wasted. Whatever 253 is allocated to these applications is being utilized correctly, and they are 100% healthy. Had there been some deployments which were in the unhealthy state, you would have seen this over here. And obviously then the typical CPU memory details that you see over here, but this is just a very basic kind of dashboard that you would see in most systems. So now I'll move on to the catalog, right? Well, now what do we mean by catalog? Now Sandesh was talking about the ease of deploying applications and the fact that you don't really need too many scripting sort of capabilities to deploy applications, right? The reason being, this particular software, this is a platform. IBM Cloud Private is actually a platform, sitting on Kubernetes, which is an open source orchestration layer, and wherein we've deployed multiple applications which are both cloud native and cloud ready, and we've deployed them, and made them available to our users with the help of something called as charts. Now, what you see on the screen are the various charts through which you can actually deploy those applications, right? And if you see over here, there are multiple applications. I'll just go down that I've just imported. I've just imported charts, and those are visible on the screens right now. Pardon me, the internet is a bit slow, so it's just taking some time to just go up and down. Just bear with us. Yeah, and what I can also do is, what you see over here at the bottom is the classifications, right? The beauty of this particular solution is it not only supports your traditional Linux systems, but you can also deploy your applications on Z or on IBM Power, which is something that is a value add. And obviously, the major value add with IBM Cloud Private is that, you know, many of us might just argue that if it's built on an open source, what's the value add that IBM brings to the table, right? IBM actually, when you're deploying any application, if it happens to be an IBM middleware application or an IBM enterprise level application, obviously the entire support will come from IBM. But even for an open source kind of an application, if you want to develop something that is running on Node.js, for example, and you deploy the Node.js application through ICP, in case of any problems or concerns, IBM actually, you need not, sort of write into open source forums. You can actually write into ICP, and ICP will, team will actually get the details from the open source forum. So that is the value add that IBM brings upon, because it's very easy if you have deployed one or two open source products, but when you have multiple products on the table and you want to develop applications around that, or you want to actually seek support for those different kinds of applications, and you have to run around to multiple forums, it obviously is a task, right? But IBM can actually relieve you of those tasks. So just the list over here at the bottom where you see the repo list, right? I've imported certain charts. I'm sorry. So these are different charts that I've imported, right? And these are different applications through that those charts contain. Now, what I would do is I will just deploy one .NET application on the fly, just to showcase that it does not just support the newer applications of the Node.js and the Swifts and the Java community, but also now .NET also is coming up with its own Docker, and ICP has started supporting that as well. And one more use case I will actually cover with that is that you can, in case there's a version which is an older version, there's a problem with it, and it doesn't get deployed, you can actually upgrade the version on the fly. This is the first use case that I would want to showcase, and then I will move on to the other use cases. In case of questions, please do let me know. You can stop me in between. Rahul, you can actually sort of let me know. I see a few questions, or in fact, none so far. But Rahul, do stop me in case of any questions. I can actually address them at that point in time.
We'll do that.
Yeah, thanks, Rahul. So if I have to deploy any application, and that's available as a chart, I simply have to go to that particular chart. So like, for example, I've searched for a .NET application and I'm now looking to deploy a .NET application, right? So what I see over here is there are two versions. Okay, I would specifically, just for the demo purpose, deploy an older version, and we shall see that there is a problem which will only get addressed once we upgrade the version on the fly, right? This is something that I just wanted to showcase, just to demonstrate that the ease with which you can, sort of upgrade on the fly. Yeah. And once again, bear with us. There is a slight problem with the internet connectivity, which is, probably taking a little bit of time, but just do bear with us. So I've chosen version 0.1.0 instead of 0.1.1, which is the latest one, and I'll click configure. I'll just name it. And there's something called as a namespace. With further sessions, I'll explain the names. Namespace is something that, a space that, you deploy on Docker, wherein you can actually just secure a specific space. Let's say me and Sandesh want to deploy our applications in different areas. We can just create our own namespaces and then deploy our applications over there. So I'm just deploying a sample .NET application into a namespace called dev. So what I will see over here is that it will not come up properly. I mean, even if it is, it's not really coming up. There is a problem with the application. I can actually go into the logs and you will see that there is a problem which needs an upgrade. Just give me a minute. So even though it is deployed, it's not in the ready state because there is a problem with the application. I can show you the logs as well. And then I'll upgrade and then you will see that it comes up. See, there is some problem with the image. There is some problem. It's not really well because there is some concern with the older one, right? So I'll now deploy the newer application, the upgrade, and it'll actually work. So let me just go to the releases and upgrade the application. So now if I look to upgrade, right, it will actually upgrade on the fly. Sorry, because of the internet connectivity, it's just taking some time. So I'm just now upgrading it to 0.1.1. Hello? So now it's upgraded, and what we'll see over here is that it's actually come up properly, which was not the case previously. And then we'll open the console as well. So this was just one way. So you can see over here in the ready state, right? Previously it was not in the ready state because there was a problem with the loading of that application uh, since the older version had a problem. Yeah. So now I can just open up the console. There you go. The application is just deployed in a matter of minutes. Yeah. Any questions? Similarly, what I've done is just to for the audience, I've deployed certain other applications as well. This is one cloud native application that I've deployed. The Blue Compute, it's an IBM application. There is something called as a day trader, which I will specifically talk about in the next use case. Right, I've deployed this application. I've deployed other applications as well. I can just show you what all is being deployed. So see over here, you can actually, for example, for one more other customer, they had a specific use case of deploying MS SQL on Linux, and we deployed that. So this is obviously, our cloud native application, Blue Compute. We've got IIB deployed, we've got Data Power deployed, we've got, the Data 3 application, which is something that I showcased. We also have something, as the IBM Data Science Experience solution, which is an analytic solution, also deployed in ICP. So you can just go inside, although I'm not a data science expert, but this is also being deployed on ICP on the fly. The way we did it for .NET, similar applications, it's just about going to the charts and deploying those applications. Of course, there are license implications, but that's not something that we will talk about right now.
So Ritesh, what you're saying is if I have a traditional application which is working of an app server and a database, I can get it up and running in a matter of minutes.
Yes.
From an infrastructure standpoint.
Correct.
And what remains is just deploying the application and start using it to see how it works.
Absolutely. So I think Sandesh hit the nail on its head. So for instance, there is an application running on, let's say, WebSphere, right? And that needs to be moved. So first and foremost, we need to check whether it's feasible to move to the cloud. So that feasibility I'll just showcase as part of my next use case. But then, like Sandesh was mentioning, we can actually deploy the application server with a matter of minutes on the ICP setup, and then bring about the application. Obviously there would be certain changes that would be required to bring it about. That is for a legacy application. Now, an application that is to be built on the cloud itself, which is called a cloud native application, right? You can just deploy, let's say, a Node.js application on the fly, and then you can just keep working on that application on the Node.js application server that you have deployed using IBM Cloud Private. And the deployment that I showcased, it's the same way that you use through the charts, right? So it's so very simplistic. Now, I would go on to another very important use case, and which is a real value add from an IBM perspective, right? The one that I was talking about, modernizing an application, right? Now, the use cases, majority of our applications today are running on legacy application servers or on legacy VMs, and obviously with cost constraints, and more importantly with the sort of advantages that a cloud ready application would bring into from a customer standpoint. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, there's a question around the version. Just a minute, I was not able to look at that question. Just a minute. Okay, in this, the version that was mentioned, the question here is, for that .NET application that I deployed, what was the version? Yeah, the version that was showing was the .NET version supported on the which is dockerized as of today. The previous version was an unstable version, right? In this case, uh, and we used the stable version to be deployed on the fly. But it need not be the case. It could be, versions 1.x, 1.x.y or something. Basically, any upgrade, even if a working version needs an upgrade for some additional features, and those are available now as a chart on ICP or on Kubernetes, that can be deployed on the fly. So it's the version of the application per se. I hope I've answered that question. Uh, Yeah, and I will now go to the second use case, which is very, very important from all of us, right? From all our point of view, which is how do we ensure that any application today is ready, first and foremost, is ready or feasible to move on to the cloud, which is something that we can actually determine using a free tool that IBM provides, which is called as the IBM Transformation Advisor. This is freely available through the IBM Cloud Private Community Edition. You just need to download it, and you can just run this on your uh, systems, and can check the feasibility of your traditional Java applications, whether or not they can be moved 100% to cloud or not. So this is the tool that we'll make use of. Okay. What I have done is that I have actually deployed an application called DayTrader, which is running on my traditional WAS WebSphere application server on a separate instance. You can see the instance as 1064 1847. Now I want to test whether this particular application is feasible to be moved on to cloud. So what I've done is I've made use of IBM Transformation Advisor, and it's a tool which actually basically just runs a script as part of in the war file. It just runs a script, right? All the instructions are there. I wouldn't really want to go into the implementation details, but you just have to download a script. It could be the application could be running on Linux, AIX, Solaris, or Windows. It doesn't really matter. You just have to run the script as part of the war file, and then you will get the data automatically collected by the transformation advisor and report onto the server. And this is something that I've already done as part of this setup, and which is where I have got the recommendations. So for trader application, what I see over here is uh, just a minute. I'll just yeah, okay. So for data application, what I have done is I've imported the data that I was talking about. And what you see over here are the recommendations and the time frame through which I can actually migrate this particular application onto cloud. Now what I see over here is that this particular application, there is a technical match of 100%, which means that this application, without having too many challenges, because it's showing as a moderate one, can be moved from traditional WAS to WAS on Liberty, which essentially IBM runs on. IBM Cloud Private runs on, yeah, for a cloud ready application. Yeah. And these are the different three dependencies. We'll delve into it in details. And these are some of the issues that need to be addressed for this particular application to be moved onto Liberty. There are different cases. I'm just taking Liberty as an example. The estimated development cost. Okay, so this is the time, this is the effort that will be required, development effort that will be required to make this application ready from running onto WebSphere application server node network deployment to web server application server liberty profile, and the total effort also is much. So it doesn't from there is something called as an infrastructure effort also, but this one doesn't require a great deal of that. So let me just go inside now into details. Now this is a recommended target environment, okay, and the overall complexity is moderate, which means that you would not have too much of an effort. Had it been complex, obviously it requires more effort, right? And these are the individual details. I won't get into the details, but these are different details of what needs to be done to move this application, what changes need to be done to the application for it to be moved to the cloud, where exactly these changes need to be made. For example, this JM is called the database queries, and all of that needs to be sorted. So it gives a comprehensive analysis. You can even get to something called as an analysis report, technology report, and inventory report. So which will actually give you the details of what are the different severe rules that need to be taken care of, warnings. Okay, all of this comes part of a single report which is coming under the transformation advisor. So it gives you a plethora of information, full-fledged plethora of information, which helps you a to resolve the issues through which you can actually move a particular application first and foremost, whether it's feasible. So when it shows 100% challenge, 100% success, then it will actually be, that means it is feasible, and then it will show you the level of difficulty that whether it's simple, moderate, complex, and then in detail of what changes need to be made for it to be migrated. There is also something called as a migration plan. So I can just click on this migration plan, and it automatically creates, once you make those changes, it automatically creates these particular files for you, and you can actually just bundle them and then put it across. So this is why it is a value add from an IBM perspective. Any questions on this particular scenario, because it's a very important use case?
So Ritesh, from what you are telling us, if this is a tool that's available for free from IBM,
Yeah,
and I can download it without really procuring any new licenses or
correct.
anything of that sort, I can just take this tool and run it off my existing application to figure out if it's cloud ready and how much of an
Right.
effort is really required.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, team, any questions on this? I can just, because this is one of the most important use cases that I was, that from a day-to-day usage perspective, and let's face it, we are not, Indian market is not in that space that we are going to create cloud native applications on the fly these days. So, app modernization is something that, be it the financial sector, be it, manufacturing sector, all of us are looking to do. So it's very, very pertinent in our market use, in our marketplace. Okay. So in case you have any questions on that, I'll move on to that. Now I will take another use case, which is with IBM Cloud Private. You can also sort of build your CI/CD pipeline. Because we have Jenkins as part of the ICP deployment. You can actually deploy Jenkins server as part of the deployment. And what you can do is we have something called as microclimate, through which I'm going to, sort of do the build, ship, and run, showcase the use case of how I'll just make a change in a Node.js application and deploy it onto ICP with just a couple of clicks. So I wanted to demonstrate the continuous integration, continuous deployment lifecycle, which is very, very important from a DevOps perspective. So that is something also that is available on the fly with IBM Cloud Private, right? So I would want to just showcase you that particular use case now. So what I've done is I've actually imported a project with a Node.js application. I've just you know kept this stopped on the setup. I would want to run this on Cloud Private, right, on ICP. But before that, I would actually want to make a change to this particular application, right? Let me just put this test. I'll click on commit. It's a very small Node.js application that I've actually deployed, and it will actually build through the Jenkins pipeline and deployed on ICP through this particular setup. Now I've actually started, I've pushed the image and I have the Jenkins pipeline open with me over here. And you will see that it will actually start building the application with the change. You can see the pipeline is actually getting built. While it is doing so, we can actually concentrate on the new use case. Now let me just Just give me a minute. It's not actually allowing me to change over here. There's some problem with my connectivity. Hold on. I'll just change that and you will see that I've already deployed it once. It is coming up over here. I just deployed it without the changes. I'll make the change also and deploy it. You can see over here it's showing as deployed, and I'll open that application also for you. But I want to make certain changes also to it. This is the one that I actually showed, webinar test. I made a change and it actually deployed on the fly, right? But I'm just making another change. If you can see over here, I made webinar test and it actually deployed over here. Yeah.
So as you commit your changes, it can
Yes,
be deployed on
deployed.
the fly to the
Correct.
server.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Using this particular solution, which is called microclimate. And as you can see now, this application is running, which was in the stopped state, which I had actually stopped on purpose. I mean, you can run it over here as well, but I prefer making it run on the ICP. So any questions on this? I can even run a load test, but I will showcase it as part of a separate use case. Any questions? This is for your CI/CD type pipeline, all the developers on this particular webinar. This is for your CI/CD pipeline. You can actually make use of Jenkins, Maven, even if it's any questions before I move on to the next screen, next use case. Okay, so now I will actually move on to the third use case, which is again an important use case from a Docker perspective, or why you would want to Dockerize or containerize any application, which is the auto scaling and auto healing aspect, and which obviously ICP very much supports. So for this, I will actually take an application which is deployed on IIB. I'll first showcase that particular you know uh, application to you on ICP. But before that, my bad, I just forgot to showcase that the date trade application which which was running on VAS, traditional VAS, I had also deployed on ICP. I'll just open that screen to you. My bad, I just forgot to showcase that.
So this has moved from traditional VAS to
Yes.
your VAS Liberty profile.
Yes, that's correct. So you can see over here, this is the same application that is running on traditional VAS, and I've deployed that same application now on ICP. This is my ICP server, proxy server, which is running on a different port and is actually running this particular same application. So now I'll move on to the last use case, since we are running a little short on time. Let me just first open up the application just to showcase that this is running an IIB service. I'll open up the IIB console. The team that is, if any one of you is making use of IIB today, would be familiar with this particular console.
So ICP not only supports traditional application servers, here
but
we are talking about the middleware platforms.
Yeah, enterprise applications and enterprise middleware applications, right? So this is the IIB node. I have actually deployed one internal application, one XML on this particular application, right? And I will run a use case around this. The use case obviously would be how, if there is an increase in load, how ICP can actually increase the number of, we call it pods, okay, in Docker parlance it's called pods, to support those, and once the load goes down, it will automatically scale down. So I have this IRB sample application. Now, as you can see over here at the bottom, currently there's only one pod running. If you see over here, default ready, 1 of 1. Now I will actually generate some load on this application and you will see 2 more coming in. Just bear with me. I just forgot to run this load test, open this load test app previously because I had to restart my app, machine. So prior to this, so just a minute. It'll not take more than a minute.
So on what parameters would a typically pod get scaled off? Is it the traditional CPU memory?
Yeah,
or is there
CPU.
something more to it?
No, CPU, and there's something also called as round robin. So CPU memory is currently that we support, and there's something called through Istio, which is the newer technology. I don't want to get into too many technology jargons right now. This state platform, which will have certain more parameters through which auto scaling will be supported, which we do support now.
Okay. So if I had to just simplify this, if I take it to, so the CPU loading goes about 50% as an example, I can just scale up another instance.
Correct. Okay. And I will show that rule that I've also set in ICP if in case the audience wants to sort of. So I'm now generating this load on this application, and what we will see is that this particular pod will just increase from 1 to 2 as the load increases. Till now it's able to sustain. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes and it will come up. This is something that is very, very important. The business use case is that most of our load usually happens during a month end. Let's say when you're actually looking to sort of for the salary perspective and all of these. Sometimes so the beauty is we need not allocate resources prior to that only. This will actually auto scale. You need not allocate resources at that point in time. You can just this will take care of the auto scaling feature will take care of this issue. Still there is not much load. So so now you can see over here the load has increased and now these 2 pods have also come up. Those are also in the ready state. Now once I stop and the load gets declined, this will actually come back to 1.
Okay. So here you are actually optimizing the hardware that you are leveraging as the.
Absolutely. So now let me just stop the load. And in a couple of minutes, like we saw with the scale up, it will actually scale down. So with that, actually, I've covered majority of the use case. I wanted to basically cover 3 use cases, which are very important from a day-to-day usage perspective. One is obviously migration of an application from a traditional VM kind of an environment sitting on a legacy application server onto cloud and dockerizing it, containerizing it to make it cloud ready. This the tool that we use, the IBM Transformation Advisor, which actually enables you to check the feasibility and help you in embark